Hey guys, welcome to the Touchdown Table. I'm Ryan, that's Tyler, that's Jordan, and in this video we are going to be talking about OBJ, Odell Beckham Jr. of the Cleveland Browns. Is he a one-catch wonder, or can he get back to being a top 5 wide receiver?
Yeah, and when we say one-catch wonder, we will refer to what we're talking about. I'm sure you know what we're talking about. And Jordan's standing up and showing it to us all.
Yeah.
Yes, the one-handed catch behind his back
Can't fall
against
back
the Cowboys.
and break something.
Yeah.
Was that a Sunday night game?
I think it was. They lost that game. They were playing Dallas.
They always lose.
But it was a great catch, and I think that was his rookie year, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
That was way back in 2014 that he had that catch, and that put him on the map. And why we're making this now is, in the last 3 years, the production hasn't been there as it was the years before that. So we're going to talk about whether we think he can have a resurgence with the Browns offense. We're going to go through his career and continue to do that. So let's start at 2014 with that catch. He had a great year his rookie year, 12 touchdowns. That was the second most he had in a season. 1,305 yards in that season. That's great for a rookie. And then in 2015, the stats were very similar. He had an even better year. And then I'll just go through the rest of it with the Giants just to make sure we got it all. It slowly starts to decline as it goes, and then he got injured in 2017, didn't play. 2018, the production wasn't there, just over 1,000 yards. And then his first year with the Browns, the big trade that happened last year, once again, not that much production. But every single year he's been over 1,000 yards in which he's played more than 5 games.
Mm-hmm. And there's some consistency, but something that jumps out at me when I look at the stats from just this past season, only 4 touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, exactly.
And that's something I wanted to mention, so I'm glad you said that. Tyler, you started the video by saying the past 3 years he's been in decline. And you look at the stats, yes, the yards are down, but one of those years he only played in 4 games, only started 2 games. And then the other ones, he played the rest of the season, but he still got over 1,000 yards. When you pass that 1,000-yard mark for a receiver, that's still a very hard milestone to reach, especially on a team that had Jarvis Landry, some other weapons as well, to take some receptions away from him. But now going back to the touchdowns, earlier he had 12 touchdowns rookie season. Next season, 13 touchdowns, then 10 touchdowns. And then the last 3 seasons, the season he was injured, he had 3 touchdowns. Only played 4 games, so it was actually pretty good. Mm-hmm. 2018, he had 6 touchdowns. This year, he only had 4 touchdowns. So I think the thing with him is he's still going to get those yards. He's a great run-after-catch guy. He's one of those great slant guys. You hear a lot of people talk about Michael Thomas on the slant because he had ran it so much last year. But Odell Beckham Jr. excels on the slant as well. When he gets that ball in motion, he's very good. So he gets those yards. He just needs to work on those touchdowns in the red zone. Maybe he's not that big receiver. He's got great hands. We all know that. But he's not a big receiver who can go up and get some touchdowns in the red zone. Plus, people cover him a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and once again, this is the main point at the video, which we want to talk about. Jordan hinted at it, but the decline when he went to the Browns this year. I mean, the stats are close, but also he played 12 games in 2018 with the Giants and put up almost similar stats. You thought him going to the Browns, and at the time last year everyone was hyping up the Browns. Odell Beckham Jr. is going to have a career year. He'll be the best receiver in the league with all this help he's got around him with Jarvis Landry and the running backs that they had there. Mm-hmm. And like I mentioned, Baker Mayfield and the good defense to help out on the other end. Mm-hmm. But the stats weren't there, and he played in all 16 games. He had the couple of shenanigans during the season with like the watch was one of the examples. He had that really expensive watch. But I feel like now we've seen stuff with the net and all that with anger with Odell, but that shouldn't be much of a problem. I mean, yeah, that's kind of the new thing that happens. So you can't be a receiver without yelling on the sideline. Right?
Yeah, and let's remember that it's not all on him, I feel like, for the decline, especially with last year, because Baker Mayfield had a little bit of a sophomore slump, I think we can say, last year. But I think he's going to have a junior jump this year, so I think Odell's production should improve as with Baker Mayfield. The entire Browns team, I know you're probably sick of hearing this, but I think Cleveland's going to be a lot better this year. And I know people have said that a lot of years, but I think that they're going to be definitely competitive in that tough division as a team. So I do see a bright future ahead for Odell in that team.
Yeah, you look back to last year and you could say that the Browns sucked. Well, actually, I shouldn't have put it that way. Yeah. But they majorly... It
feels that way.
It does feel that way. They majorly underperformed. They had a record of 6-10 to end the season. They were in a tough... I would kind of touch division with the Ravens, who they played twice a year, and the Steelers and the Bengals kind of slumped last year too. Yeah, the Bengals weren't that tough. But I think what you can look directly at Odell, but like we've been talking about, you can look around the whole roster. The parts are all there. Odell Beckham Jr. included in that. It just needs to come all together. I think he's a great wide receiver. I think he's a specific skill set wide receiver.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I'm just going to compare to Michael Thomas again. I'm going to talk about it a bit again. Because there's a lot of, and we've talked about it. We've talked about who's the best receiver in the league. You guys think Michael Thomas is in that 3 area in the 3 area? I held it before, but 3 area, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, number
About
3.
there.
Yeah.
Number 3, yeah, number 3. So they think he's like a number 3 receiver. You look back to last year, he had so many receptions, so many yards.
Yeah.
Most people would be saying that he would be the best wide receiver, but the thing with Michael Thomas is that he has a somewhat specific skill set. Now, he can do a lot of the things.
Well, and it's the offense that he's in as well. If you put DeAndre Hopkins or Julio Jones or even Odell Beckham Jr. to tie it all together in that Saints offense, we could definitely be throwing Odell in the conversation as the best receiver in the league. That being said, this Browns offense should have been almost as good as the Saints offense was last year, at least with the expectations going into 2019. Mm-hmm. So you can continue your point. I was just wondering.
I forgot what I was saying now because you cut me off.
Sorry, I shouldn't have put it that way.
I'll say something because, like, in Cleveland, when it comes to their run-pass ratio, I found this interesting. They're kind of in the middle of the pack. They run the ball. They ran the ball 42.2% of the time and passed the other 57.8% of the time. So they do pass a little more, but they are kind of middle in the pack of that range. So an interesting kind of stat. And, the thing with Cleveland is they're often so hard to predict. It's often so hard to predict how they're going to be and what type of plays they're going to call and how they're going to just run their team. Because almost every year they have a new coach. And now in this case, it's Kevin Stefanski, who they got from Minnesota. So just eager to see, first time head coach, how is he going to use Baker Mayfield? How is he going to use these guys? It's just like every year they have a new coach. So it's like every year we're saying it's a new era in Cleveland. And, usually eras are longer than a year or two. But we really, don't know how Stefanski will run this offense until we at least get into, maybe preseason and early regular season.
Mm-hmm. And I know we're kind of going off of Odell Beckham Jr. This is kind of a Browns offense thing now.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to talk about it. I think that the offense is going to be pretty good. Odell Beckham Jr. included because there are so many weapons on this offense. Odell Beckham Jr., Jarvis Landry. I love Nick Chubb. I think he's going to have another great year. He had a great year last year, and it was kind of not shown as much because he was on a 6-10 team. So I think they're going to have a great offense this year, or at least, like usual, the parts are there to do it.
Yeah.
They're also improving the offensive line, which has been good for them.
Yes, both sides, on both sides.
Yeah.
Yes. So I think that there are so many weapons on this team. It might take away from the stats of Odell Beckham Jr., but the thing we need to see is we need to see more touchdowns from you. We need to see more production in the red zone, maybe some more longer passes down the field instead of some run-after-catch ones, which if you can get those in open field, great. Get in the ball as much as you can in those situations. But I'd like to see him come up more diverse receiver this year with Landry and even Chubb, some other guys on that team as well that are getting some attention. I don't think Baker should try to force the ball to anyone on that team because there's so many weapons. Get the ball to whoever's open because someone's bound to be with all those people. So I think his stats might take a shot because of the people around him, but I still think he's a decent receiver. Like I said, he just needs to get those touchdowns up again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you talked about Kevin Stefanski earlier. Me and Jordan specifically have a lot of experience, like seeing his offense work. Because the Vikings are in the same division as the Bears.
They like to run the ball.
Yeah. Yes, they do, and that's exactly what I was going to get into. Because especially with these receivers, what we saw last year, why Stephon Diggs was so mad and eventually got shipped out of there was because Kevin Stefanski loves to run the play-action offense or just run the ball.
Yeah.
And he had Dalvin Cook do that last year, and he was fine with just continuing to run it. But that makes wide receivers angry. He can do that again with Nick Chubb. Yeah. I'm not saying go away from the run game, but that could be something that has an effect.
Don't forget about Kareem Hunt, too.
Yeah. That can have an effect on his stats and his mentality of the season, which I don't know if that would help or hurt, but at the beginning of the season, at least, I would figure that would hurt. And we might see something similar to what we saw with the Vikings last year with that resurgence and just kind of change in the offense.
Yeah, and go ahead.
I think Stefanski will learn a bit. I think that if they give the ball to Nick Chubb a lot of times, I think he'll do some good stuff with the football, but I think Stefanski will learn kind of how to balance it. Last year, he ran it a lot with the Vikings, and that sometimes put Kirk Cousins in a weird situation where sometimes he wasn't ready. Sometimes he only threw like 10 passes a game. That's not normal for a quarterback. I think they need a bit more reps, especially with someone younger like Baker Mayfield. You want to get him some more game time reps, throw the ball, get him used to it a bit more instead of making him throw the ball 10 times and then he throws it the 11th time, gets him thrown a pass in like 15 minutes and it could go off the mark. Yeah. So I think you got to get them in a bit of a rhythm. You got to go a bit more on the pass side than the run side. I think that's a major thing around the league. Most teams do that. But I think he'll learn how to do it. And I'm just going to say it. I'm interested to see how Kevin Stefanski's offense works.
And nobody didn't get much worse than Freddie Kitchens.
Oh,
year.
yeah.
Sure.
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, yeah. I'm glad you guys brought
that
that
also
up.
has a big effect on Odell, by the way.
Yeah. I'm glad you guys brought that up because Minnesota actually last year, they ran the ball the third most of any team. They ran it 50.5% of the time and passed the other 49.5%. So almost 50-50, but that's third highest.
Ahead of those two was the Ravens and the 49ers. We know how much the 49ers ran it, and I would assume that Lamar Jackson running is taken into account with the Ravens.
Lamar Jackson running, Mark Ingram running. There's a whole bunch of guys in that offense that were running. They had such a great run offense, and that's why they were so good because they worked around Lamar Jackson in that run game, which I've talked about 80,000 times already.
Yes.
Not in this video, but other
So, in all, I think we all think that Odell Beckham Jr. has the talent to be a good receiver. He's still one of the top receivers in the league.
He's made some other catches besides.
Yeah, there was this one. There was this one. I think we went the next year against Washington where he dove. I don't.
There's one where he dove and caught one like that.
That might have been against the Redskins.
There's a few on the sideline where he had some good ones. I think there was one where he was actually out of bounds, but he jumped really high and got his hand up, and his feet landed out of bounds. He's had a few great catches. He's got two great hands to catch the ball with. Yeah. He's a very good hands receiver. I just think he needs to get some more diversity, like I said before.
Yeah. So, like Jordan said, it's just getting the pieces around him to get things to work.
The Browns just
have
to get to work.
Around
him.
Yeah.
It's not just Odell.
And with the Giants, too. With the Giants, we're never really a good team when he was with them.
He did have, Eli Manning was still, somewhat, he was still somewhat solid in, when Odell was a rookie. So, obviously, he was in a decline last year and eventually retired.
But also on the Giants, Odell was basically the main guy, so he was targeted most of the time.
Yeah.
That's why that could have padded his health and stats a bit more, too.
Okay. And then last point I want to make, just kind of a funny little point, but if Austin Seibert, their kicker, gets hurt, Odell could step in and kick for them as well. So another talent he has. Yeah. We've seen him do that pre-game, so it's very fun.
Yeah.
So in the kicking aspect and the catching aspect, Odell is a good receiver. We just feel like he hasn't got the correct pieces around him in total for the stats to show up. So thank you guys for watching this video. Let us know your opinions on Odell Beckham Jr. Like this video, subscribe to this video, subscribe to this channel, hit the notification bell.
Mind of his own.
And
whack you back, Odell.
And with that, what Jordan said and what we all said, with that, we'll see you guys later.
See ya.